Hello, everybody, and welcome to another meeting for CNCF Harbor. Today is the 23rd of October, and as always, this is a recorded meeting, so please adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct and guidelines. So I have a few things that I want to basically educate everybody today on. Some of them are logistical, and other things are like some exciting announcements from our community. And then we'll do a couple of demos as well. So so let's get started. So let me share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see it.
Not yet. Keep trying. There we go.
It takes a second. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is that we have a couple of changes in our community. The first one is Mina has decided to step down from the maintainers group, and that was as a result of she was already getting pulled into a lot of other requirements and in her day job, which is at VMware, and she has been replaced with Daniel Pasak, who's from Aqua Security. So Daniel has done a lot of good work for us lately. He's been spearheading, along with Zach and others, the pluggable scanner work. And this is a testament of the great work that he's been doing in the community and his contributions. And he's now the latest maintainer in the Harbor ecosystem. So now we have 5 non-VMware maintainers, and we have 4 VMware maintainers. And of course, the core maintainer group is also comprised out of VMware folks. So congratulations. If you see Daniel on Slack or anywhere else on Twitter, make sure you congratulate him on his new role within our community. The second thing I want to bring your attention to is that, again, in this community repo for the Go Harbor, we have added both a code of conduct, which essentially is just a link to the CNCF Code of Conduct. This is, the basic guidelines in terms of, how we communicate with each other with respect, with dignity, and, how we carry ourselves within the community. So we're following the upstream or our governing body, CNCF's Code of Conduct here. And the last thing is we added what anyone can call the guiding principles for the project. Think of this as a set of values and a mission statement that we need to uphold as we operate within the Harbor community. Most important thing here is our mission statement, which is to be the most secure, performance, scalable, and available cloud-native repository for Kubernetes. That's a kind of a powerful statement, but that's really what we're striving to be. We want to make sure the Harbor is ubiquitous and used across the board in every Kubernetes cluster. In order to accomplish that, we have a set of vision and values here. And then our values are around everything from technical excellence, innovation, our D&I, diversity and inclusion, openness, and obviously the code of conduct that we mentioned earlier. These are important aspects in terms of having a high functioning and high velocity community. So we have seen no evidence that our community does not follow these values, but now we have them documented, and we have a way to reference them and in every single interaction that we have in the community. And generally, other CNCF projects have had a committee that has been responsible for upholding these values and making sure everything is followed. In our case, we didn't want to dedicate a community to this, but essentially what we're doing is we're saying everybody in the community is responsible for making sure we uphold our values and guiding principles. And if we're not, make sure you flag it up and we'll have a discussion about it and of course correct. So both the maintainers group, our open source community manager, Jonas, that's on the call right now, and others should monitor all our community activities and make sure we honor our values. These are and the last thing I want to mention here from a logistical standpoint is that we did open the Harbor graduation proposal. So now there is a proposal out there that we presented at the CNCF TOC committee on November 5th. Once the voting starts for Harbor, we will encourage everybody in our community to provide a non-binding vote. Of course, if you support Harbor to become graduated, you can offer that non-binding vote. So you can read more about it in the CNCF TOC under the proposals. That's where Harbor is located. Cool. That's it from the couple of logistical updates. Let's talk a little bit about releases. So we have a few releases in the pipeline. We have 1.8.5 that is slated to come sometime in early November. 1.9.2 is also going to ship around the same time frame. And then we're trying to nail down the final date for 1.10. And that's the release that Zach Hill and others have been working on to enable the pluggable scanners and a few other features. Early indications are probably an early December ship date with potentially a release candidate that we can showcase at KubeCon US in San Diego. Speaking of KubeCon, is anybody going?
Yes.
Yes, you're. Yeah. I know you're going, Jonas and Kenny. Zach, Julubu, are you guys going?
Yes, I'll be there.
Cool. If you guys, and this is more of a question for Jonas, is the Contributor Summit only for Kubernetes, or can other CNCF projects also attend?
So Contributor Summit is only for Kubernetes. It's the Kubernetes Contributor Summit. We're going to be roughly 450 people, both new and existing contributors. It's not for other CNCF projects, but we do have the Harbor event on Monday, which is the same time. I don't know if you talked about that in an earlier call. Yeah,
I did talk about it in an earlier call, and I was going to mention that right now as well. So if you guys have viewed our webinar last week on Harbor, one of the things that we talked about at the end, by the way, I highly encourage everybody to view that. And one of the things we talked about was this lunch and learn that we have with Joe Beda, where we're going to enable a lot of folks to come in, get to know more about Harbor, and also get an opportunity to interact with the maintainers, other users, contributors, and give you an opportunity to get some of your questions answered, but also get real hands-on experience on Harbor. And let me actually open up, since this is a recorded thing, everybody will be able to find this way. So the webinar we did last week with CNCF, it was me and Liz Rice. Zach was there as well, and so other folks from Aqua and Anchor. Is super important. It talks about some of the new capabilities that come in 1.10. And at the end of that, we had this slide about this working lunch at KubeCon. It's on Monday, November 18th, 12:30 to 4 p.m. So if you guys can make it, register. It's a $50 registration fee, which we will donate to a charity. I forgot the name of the charity now, but please, we encourage you to guys come and attend that event. And this is a URL within the Linux Foundations. So, it's donated to the CNCF Diversity Scholarship Fund. So under that too. Cool. All right, I want to open it up right now if there's any questions, and if not, we'll move on to some demos. No questions? All right, let's do some demos. So the first demo I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase the work around the ability to create what we call a limited user. We've talked about this in the past. Think of a limited user as a user in Harbor that's going to be very useful in multi-tenant environments where a service provider is basically hosting Harbor and exposing it to a set of multiple entities where those entities may not know about each other, and but they still need to have access to be able to use Harbor. So we've added this new user called limited guest that only has pool capabilities for containers, but at the same time, if he were ever to log into Harbor, he won't be able to see each other. So let's go ahead and create a couple of users here. And I'm going to create a new project, and I'm going to call it demo. And under this project, I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of users. So the first thing I need to do is obviously I need to create my users here. So there's a limited guest user there, and I'm going to call another guy a regular guest. And by the way, I apologize that you see my big fingers typing. This is just a placement of my keyboard. Oh, sorry, of my camera on the keyboard.
It's the nostril view.
Yeah, this is blame. Well, I can't say the manufacturer right now. But yes, blame them. Let me actually delete this user, and I want to recreate him. So obviously, if you're using LDAP or any other identity federation, you're going to get your users from there. But all right, so we went ahead and created our 2 users now. So let's go back to our project called demo, and let's create accounts using those users. So let's go create our first user. In this case, we're going to add the limited guest. And this is a new permission that you're seeing. Before you had guest, developers, master, and project admin. Now you have limited guest. And let's go add our second user, and I want to call him the regular guest. And select regular guest here. So now we have these 2 types of users in Harbor. And by the way, if you're not aware of how you can find out the permissions for all these users, we actually created a very cool documentation here under the user guide. And if you search for master, that's how I find it, is that we basically talk about the different users here. And then after that, we have a link to the detailed permissions that has a comprehensive RBAC listing of what each user is able to do. So if you're ever curious, this is where you find out what each user can do. And notice here that the limited guest is able to do very few things, right? He can see the project configuration, see a list of repositories, images, and pull an image, and that's about it. He doesn't have access, for example, to see project logs or project members or anything else. Now I notice a typo, it's called project. We'll fix that. Let's go back to our demo here. And let me go ahead and log out. And I will log in as limited guest. And this is what happens when you rely on password managers for a lot of things. You forget to type your passwords. So now we have this limited guest, and see, he's only able to see one project, and that's the one that he has an entitlement to. And most importantly, when he actually gets into that project, you don't see a users option here. So there's very few things that that person can do in this case. So if we log out now and log in as a regular guest, notice now that I have the same entitlement to the demo project, but in this case, I can see members and I can see each other. Any questions on this capability?
What version did this come out in?
This will come out in version 1.10. That's the release of Harbor that I mentioned will probably ship in super early December. And we might have a release candidate at KubeCon timeframe.
Cool.
Is it something that you're interested in? Do you have a use case for this scenario as well?
Not yet, but just trying to understand what features are coming, so I can talk about it with my team.
Absolutely. The presentation I mentioned earlier that we did last week also talks about 1.9 features, and we have a detailed deck on 1.10 as well. So if you get a chance, you can view that as well and kind of give you an overview of where we're going as a project.
Cool.
All right, let's move on to a second feature, which is called immutable tags. So immutable tags enables you as an operator or administrator to define a set of images or repositories or image tags in your environment as basically being immutable, which means that once they are set in Harbor, they can never be modified. So you can delete them, you can overwrite them with another image. You have to go and remove the mutability if you want to do any of that in those cases. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we have here our project, which is library, and there's a new section called immutable tag. Now, before I click on that, I'm going to warn you, the UI is not finished yet, so it has some references to other capabilities as part of the copy and paste. But we're basically giving you guys a super early preview of this feature. So when I click on immutable tags, over here I don't have any rules, and it says retention rules, but ignore that for a second. But let's go ahead and create a rule. So notice here I have a few repositories, right? So I have this hello world, which has a demo and a latest tag. Okay, so I can come in and add a rule that basically says all my repos should be immutable. Or I can set a rule that says certain repositories should not be immutable. So I can come in and easily create a set of rules that define how I want to deal with these images. So think about a specific rule that someone could do, right? So someone could come in and say, if my demo, if my hello world application is not to be modified for the tag demo, then that rule now can be applied. Again, ignore the middle thing. This is a byproduct of being a super early preview. But now I've created an immutable rule that basically tells Harbor, go ahead and guys, my apologies. I think something went wrong in the system here. I clicked tag retention stuff immutable rule. So let me actually create again. So hello world and demo tag. So if I were to create that, basically I'm instructing Harbor, no matter what happens, nobody can update hello world demo tag. And if a new version comes out, I need to basically call it demo 1, demo 2, or version 1.2, version 1.3. And this is the beauty of this. So this works very well in scenarios where your CI/CD system is going to produce a production level image. You can tag it appropriately, and then you can also use the same CI/CD policy to create an immutability rule so that Harbor can maintain the original desire of you on that image. So you cannot have someone else in your dev team come and override it. That's basically the beauty of immutability. And as we've shown, this is super early preview, and some of these things didn't work. So my apologies ahead of time. So let's keep that for now. Any questions on some of these new capabilities?
Immutable tags will be in 1.10, right?
That is correct. Yeah, so that's basically what I showed right now is a first build of immutable tags, which is a little bit rough, but we're working on it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Any other questions? And by the way, I was able to add the tag. I just had to finagle the UI a little bit to bypass some of its capabilities. But essentially, once you enable the immutable tag, if you try to do a push on the image, it would just fail using the same tag. Or if you try to delete it, same thing. And one of the things I forgot to mention is that there's going to be situations where you want to enable some tag retention rules for compliance. And those tag retention rules might conflict with immutability rules that protect you from deleting an image, right? And you might ask, why is that? Well, one of the things we want to prevent is, let's say you set up, and I'm going to pick on Redis here. You set up Redis version 1.2 to be immutable? Well, we want to prevent delete as well for one reason. We don't want someone, we certainly don't want someone to override Redis 1.2, but we also don't want someone to go and delete Redis 1.2 and override it with a new image. That's exactly the same thing, essentially. So with immutability, we prevent both delete and override. So delete is also what tag retention does. So when a retention rule runs and you're essentially based on policy, you want to delete an image because it's out of compliance, or basically you're running out of space and you only want to keep n number of images, or the image should not be more than 90 days old, or whatever your policy is, tag retention might decide to delete an immutable image. On purpose, Harbor will also fail that deletion, and we have a webhook that we have configured so that you'll be notified as an operator or administrator that you have a conflicting policy between tag immutability and tag retention, and you can take action on that. So your opportunity as an administrator or operator of Harbor is to remove the immutability on that image and clear it out, or you can actually fix your tag retention rules. And that's it. That's all the updates I had for today. I want to open up the floor if anybody has any questions. We'll have a few more minutes. All right, no questions. Well, thank you all for attending. I really appreciate that. Jonas, since we talked about it today, you might want to tweet on our Twitter account, the Lunch and Learn with Joe beta again. Let's just give it one more round of folks to be aware of that. And hopefully we're going to see quite a few of folks from our community attend that.
Sounds great. Will do.
Thank you all. Have a good day. We'll post this on YouTube in a few days. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
Take care.